The Last Flamekeeper, Part 2. Chapter 11. The Girl in the Ember Crypt. The Empire did not just kill dragons. They harvested them, siphoned them, and when they found children who could hear the fire but not be controlled by it, they buried them deep. Beneath the bone cathedral, beyond the crypts where saints were sealed and martyrs entombed, lay a vault no one was meant to find. It was carved from obsidian and laced with mirror steel. The walls pulsed with chains woven of ash glass and old prayer. No torches burned here, only glyphs that glowed faintly with containment runes, powered by the bones of long-dead Wyrmthrone. And at the center of this place, bound by 12 interlocking rings of fireless steel, floated a girl. Not dead, not awake, just held. Her name was Veyra. She did not remember her parents. She did not remember the sky. But she remembered the fire, because it never stopped whispering to her. Not yet. Wait. The other flame will come. She'd been 12 when the silencers found her. Born in the eastern hills, in a village that never made it onto a map. The first time she lit a candle, it whispered her name back to her. The second time, it spoke. And the third time, she set the rain on fire. The ash-marked came that night. Her mother hid her. Her father begged. By dawn, she was in chains. And so she slept years, maybe decades, half alive in the Ember Crypt. But now she was awake, and the fire in her veins was laughing. Far above, in the Imperial Citadel, alarms were beginning to sound. Glyph wards flared and dimmed. The chains in the lower sanctum began to groan. The Wyrmkeeper's highest acolyte, a gaunt, silver-masked woman named Sesthra, descended into the lower chambers with a cadre of ash-marked guards. She arrived just as the containment runes began to pulse outward, no longer holding the girl in, but warning the world she was reaching out. "This isn't possible," Sesthra whispered. "She's been dormant since the worm seal." A guard stepped forward. "It's him. The boy. His awakening triggered her. Then he must be burned." Immediately. But as Sesthra raised her hand to reinforce the bindings, Veyra's eyes opened. And the crypt exploded. Not with fire, but with memory. The ash-marked screamed as their blades turned to heat in their hands. Glyphs on their armor melted. One by one, they collapsed, gasping, reliving the deaths of dragons they never saw. Sesthra dropped to one knee, blood leaking from her ears. "What are you?" Veyra stepped from the ring of broken restraints, barefoot and burning with quiet intensity. "I'm what you feared Kaelen would become, but I've had longer to learn how to hurt you." She walked past them, untouched, the walls weeping smoke where her presence passed. In her mind, she heard the echo. A voice not hers. Not Flame's. His. "You're not alone." And she smiled. "Neither are you, Kaelen." Outside the cathedral, birds fell from the sky. In the eastern towers of the Imperial Spire, a fire sigil carved into the stone 5 centuries ago lit for the first time. And in the high court of the Bone Empire, the Empress rose from her throne. "Find the girl, or the flame ends all of us." Chapter 12. Sparks between mirrors. The night was cold, but Kaelen couldn't feel it. He sat by the edge of a cliff near the mountain of Veltharak, the stars above him flickering like candle flame in a storm. His eyes were open, but his mind was somewhere else. The shard in his hand, the worm fang of memory, was glowing softly. And in the flame inside him, something stirred. "You feel it, don't you?" Ashra asked. She approached quietly, dragging a canvas of old star maps from her pack and unrolling them across the stone beside him. "That shimmer under your ribs. The way the ember shifts when you're not thinking about it." Kaelen nodded slowly. "It's like I'm not alone in it anymore. Like something's breathing beside me." Ashra studied him, then lit a small fire from a stone bowl. The flames curled violet and low. "The flame you carry isn't a single spark. It's the last piece of something that used to be vast. A spirit. A presence. A history. And when the Empire shattered it, when they sealed dragons and buried breath, they split that fire into pieces." She looked him in the eye. "What you're feeling now is one of those pieces waking up." Kaelen stared into the fire, and the flames changed. They didn't dance. They formed. A shape, small, at first. Then clearer. A girl. Floating. Surrounded by glowing rings of iron, cracked and hissing. She turned her head and looked at him. Far beneath the bone cathedral, in the smoking ruins of the Ember Crypt, Veyra froze. She was walking barefoot across the lower sanctum, steam rising in curls where her feet touched the stone. The guards behind her were unconscious, some murmuring in their sleep, trapped in false memories the fire had given them. But she felt them. A pressure behind her eyes. A flicker of warmth, not dangerous. Not distant. Just true. Kaelen, she whispered. She turned toward the nearest reflective surface, a melted fragment of a silver-fused mirror, and her eyes widened. Because in it, she saw his face. Back on the cliff, Kaelen gasped. The image in the fire expanded, just for a second. Long enough for him to meet her eyes. Dark. Sharp. Familiar in a way that had no logic. And then, just before it vanished, he heard her voice. You're late. The fire snapped and went out. Kaelen sat back, breath short. She saw me. Ashra looked up slowly. She's alive. Trapped. Somewhere deep. But the fire between us. He touched his chest. It knows her. Ashra looked toward the horizon. Then the Empire's kept more than just bones in its vaults. Back in the crypt, Veyra pressed her hand to the melted mirror. Behind her, the bone cathedral trembled. She didn't flinch. She only smiled. So the flame remembered itself. Good. I'm not burning this world down alone. Chapter 13. The Fireborn Sigil. The city was buried, but it was never lost. Dravith Kael, once called the Anvil of the Flame, lay hidden in the scorched gorges east of Veltharaka's spine, its forges silenced, its towers broken. But the old Flamekeepers whispered that some heat never goes cold, only quiet. Kaelen stood at the edge of a crumbling cliff, staring down at smoke rising faintly from beneath collapsed stone arches. Faded banners still clung to the rocks, black cloth streaked with sigils of twisting fire runes and drake symbols. It's beautiful, he whispered. It's dangerous, Ashra replied. And sacred. This was where they cast the first firebound armor. Where Wyrmsteel was sung, not hammered. And where your name waits to be heard. Kaelen glanced at her. You really believe it's here? I know it is. The Fireborn sigil reveals who the Ember chose, not just who you were born as. If you pass through it, the flame will brand your true name into the forge. And if I don't pass, then it consumes you. They descended into the ruins. The scent of burnt copper hung heavy in the air. Scorched statues lined the passage into the main chamber, each one headless, arms raised in a vow long forgotten. They reached the inner sanctum, a massive hall with a central pit, its edges carved with circular runes that pulsed faintly as Kaelen approached. Ancient chain pulleys and scorched levers still clung to the rafters, long useless. At the center of the pit, suspended in a hollow of obsidian steel, was the sigil forge, a circular dais with a core of molten flame, pulsing like a beating heart. Kaelen stepped forward. The forge lit. It knows you, Ashra murmured. What do I do? You enter. And walk through it. If your flame matches what's buried inside, it will not burn you. It will name you. Kaelen stripped off his cloak, his hands trembling slightly. The worm brand on his back shimmered, violet and silver and gold. He stepped into the forge, and the flame swallowed him whole. At first there was only light, then heat, then memory. He stood in a world made of fire, not burning, but shaping. Rivers of molten thought flowed around him. He saw echoes of lives not his own, riders on winged beasts, flame-bearers kneeling before slumbering Wyrmthrone, a girl with a ring of fire around her eyes, speaking a name he'd never heard. Veyra, his own voice. And then, he saw himself, not as he was, but as he was meant to be, draped in flame-touched armor, crownless, cloak of living ash and light. The brand on his back pulsing not as a mark of prophecy, but as a sigil of choice. He walked forward, and the forge whispered, Kaelen of no flame born, Flamekeeper of the reclaimed fire, bearer of the second ember. You are now named Ashbound. The flames vanished. Kaelen collapsed to his knees at the forge's edge, gasping. Ashra was already beside him. On the center of the forge platform, glowing bright and burning into the steel, a symbol had appeared. A broken crown within a ring of fire split, but not shattered. Your sigil, Ashra whispered. It's not just a name. It's a warning. Kaelen rose, steady. Then let them hear it. Far across the Empire, in a sealed tower of the Imperial Academy, a matching sigil carved into forgotten flame glass lit on its own. The arch-historian screamed. The sigil had not burned for 300 years. And far beneath the earth, Veyra blinked sharply. The ember in her veins pulsed once. And she smiled. Now we begin. Chapter 14. The Memory That Fights Back. The forge was quiet now. Kaelen sat at its edge, sweat cooling on his skin, the echo of his true name still burning behind his ribs. The Ashbound sigil glowed faintly on the floor behind him, etched permanently into the stone. But something had shifted. The air had gone still. The walls listened. And beneath their feet, something moved. Ashra stood slowly, her gaze scanning the far side of the forge hall. Ancient gear works, long silent, began to tremble. Pulleys creaked, old chains clinked against stone, and molten channels carved into the ground lit one by one, stretching toward a massive chamber door none of them had noticed before. That door wasn't open, Ashra said quietly. I didn't touch anything, Kaelen replied. You didn't have to. The sigil did. The ground rumbled, just once, deep and slow. Then the great door cracked open. They stepped into a long corridor of blackened steel and carved obsidian. Along the walls, murals once gilded in flame glass now lay faded, broken, dragons flying above cities that no longer existed, flame-bearers forging weapons of light and memory. And in the center of the chamber ahead, it waited. A relic. Half machine, half myth. The flame ward, once used to protect the throne of embers from intruders, heretics, and corrupted flame-bearers. It stood 3 times Kaelen's height, forged from mirror steel and dragabone, its hollow helm shaped like a dragon's skull, eyes glowing faintly with emberlight. Its arms were twin blades fused with heat siphons, and on its chest, a sleeping brand. Ashra stepped back. That's not a weapon. It's a memory they armored. What do we do? Kaelen asked. The relic stirred. Its helm lifted. The brand on its chest ignited. And it spoke. Bearer of flame. Declare your lineage. Kaelen stood straighter. Kaelen, of Emberbree. Flamekeeper of the Ashbound sigil. A pause. Then, sigil unrecognized. Lineage, unrecorded. Designation, usurper. The relic's eyes flared white-hot. Prepare to be undone. It moved with terrifying speed. One blade struck the ground where Kaelen had stood a heartbeat ago, sending shards of molten stone in all directions. Ashra shouted and rolled to cover, unleashing a volley of throwing spikes, each laced with old sigil ink. They bounced harmlessly off its chest. We can't kill it, she yelled. I'm not trying to kill it, Kaelen shouted back. I'm trying to wake it up. The relic lunged again, this time grazing Kaelen's shoulder. The cut sizzled. The blade had burned deeper than skin. He clenched his fist and focused, calling to the ember inside him. You know this place. You know this machine. Tell it who I am. The ember pulsed. And memory answered. Kaelen's body flared with violet and silver light. Fire twisted around him, not in defense, but in recognition. His sigil appeared again, hovering between him and the flame ward like a seal raised from time itself. The relic paused mid-strike. The sigil flared brighter. And suddenly, Kaelen saw through the machine. Not steel, not fury, but grief. The flame ward's core contained a name. A keeper who had once wielded it. A friend to dragons. Someone who died defending a truth the Empire never allowed to survive. Kaelen stepped forward, the fire curling off his arms. You're not just a weapon, he said. You were built to protect memory, not erase it. The relic froze. Then, it knelt. The flames died down. The corridor fell silent. Ashra slowly stepped out from cover, her eyes wide. You got it to submit. No, Kaelen said quietly. I got it to remember. The flame ward retracted its blades. And from its chest, a compartment opened. Inside, a scroll tube made of worm glass. Kaelen took it, unsealed it, and found a map. Not to a place. To a person. A second Flamekeeper. An echo. One name etched at the bottom, written in draconic script. Veyra. Far beneath the bone cathedral, Veyra stopped walking. The fire in her chest pulsed in perfect rhythm with Kaelen's. She reached for the nearest flame and whispered, Now you know. Chapter 15. The Ember Chain Reforged. The forge was still cooling behind them when Kaelen and Ashra broke camp at dawn. Ash clouds loomed heavy above Dravithkael's broken peaks, painting the world in dull gold and iron gray. The scroll in Kaelen's hands trembled with heat, not dangerous, but constant, like it had been waiting too long to be opened. Ashra tightened the saddle straps on her mount, as narrowed against the wind. The map's not a route, she muttered. It's a summoning. What do you mean? Kaelen asked. The old Flamekeepers didn't leave roads. They left. Echoes. Triggers. If someone worthy read the signs, the flame would guide them. She paused. And if someone unworthy found it, the flame would burn them alive. They rode east, into the ash plains, a cracked, heatless desert where the bones of dragons had once fallen like rain. Beneath the brittle soil, molten veins still pulsed. At night, Kaelen could hear them whisper in the dark, like veins remembering the blood that used to flow. The scroll guided them by heat. Each time they drifted off course, the material would grow cold. But the moment they turned toward the right place, warmth, steady, insistent. They followed it for 3 days, until they found the hollow hill. It didn't look like a fortress or a shrine, just a mound of black stone wrapped in dead ivy, half collapsed by centuries of neglect. But the scroll blazed with light the moment Kaelen touched the stone. A seam split open across the hill's face, revealing an ancient staircase leading downward, lined with glowing runes etched into the walls. Each rune bore the same mark. Fire white triangle containing small white triangle. The sigil of the original ember chain. The stairs descended into a circular chamber carved from basalt and root stone. It was bare, no torches, no relics. Just a central brazier, long cold. Kaelen approached it. "How do we light it?" he asked. Ashra shook her head. "We don't. It lights us." Kaelen stepped forward. The ember inside him stirred. The brazier ignited instantly, without touch, without spark. Silver-violet flame roared upward, curling like a dragon's breath. And then, voices. Not from outside. From the walls. 12 shadowed figures formed in the stone, wreathed in flame, faceless but solid. Flamekeepers long dead, bound to the chamber's memory. Their presence crackled with pressure, heat, expectation. One stepped forward, voice like kindling catching fire. "Ashbound bearer, why do you summon us?" Kaelen stood tall, fist clenched. "Because the Empire is rising. Because the breath has awakened. Because the other half of the flame is alive. And I can't free her alone." Another voice followed, low and wary. "We have not taken oath in generations." Ashra stepped beside him. "Then take it again. Or let the fire fade forever." Silence. Then, one by one, the flame figures stepped forward. They raised their arms in a spiral. "Then let the chain be reforged." The brazier's flames pulsed outward, rushing into the walls, into the runes, into the floor itself. The entire chamber lit with fire-bound memory. Glyphs surged across the walls, ancient names, forgotten maps, wormfire incantations lost to history. And one sigil burned at the center. Fire white triangle containing small white triangle. Ashbound. Flamekeeper. Reforged. Kaelen staggered back, breath stolen by the surge. And in his mind, there his voice, soft and close. "I felt that. You're building a bridge, Kaelen, and I'm coming across it." Far beneath the bone cathedral, Veyra stood on shattered marble. She raised one hand, glowing with light and memory, and broke her final chain. Chapter 16. The Empire bleeds smoke. The sky above the imperial capital turned black at noon. Not from clouds, not from storms, but from smoke, rising in slow spirals from the deep vents of the Wyrmthrone spire, drawn upward like breath from a dying god. It was the first time in nearly a century the smoke signal had been lit. And across the realm, every governor, priest, general, and spy who saw it felt the same cold truth settle on their tongues like ash. The Empress has called the last oath. In the obsidian gallery, where only the crown and the dead were allowed to speak, Empress Saelori knelt before a vault of polished black stone. Her braids were unbound, her robes soot-stained, and her hands, gloved in dragon hide, trembled just slightly. She spoke to the vault. Not loudly, not with command, with concession. "I have waited. I have tolerated rebellion, flame-born, whisperers. But now the Ashbound rises. Now the twin flame stirs. So I call you, final guard. I unseal you." As I swore I never would, the vault groaned open. Frost curled from its seams. And from the darkness emerged a figure wrapped in chains and bone, its face hidden by a mirrored mask etched with the sigil of the First Wyrm War. A second mouth had been carved into its jaw, an old imperial ritual used to bind a soul with dragon rage. The figure's hands were tattooed in forbidden runes, glowing faintly. "You remember your name?" the Empress asked. The voice that replied was hollow. Unnatural. "I remember only the order. I kill the fire. I seal the breath. I burn the bearers from within." "Good," she said. "Then go. Find them both. The boy in the ash. The girl in the crypt. And undo the fire. Elsewhere." Ashra finished relighting the brazier at the newly awakened Ember Chain Sanctuary. The flames now pulsed gently, active but controlled. Bound to Kaelen's presence. They'll know you lit it, she said. Kaelen stood by the edge of the hill, watching the horizon. The scroll Veyra had appeared on now shimmered with two sigils, his, and a second mark, curved and sharp, like a fong made of flame. Let them come, he said. But inside, his flame flickered. Something had shifted in the ember's pulse. Not a warning. A wound. Far beneath the bone cathedral, Veyra walked barefoot across the smoking stones of her prison. Her escape had not gone unnoticed. Ash-marked flooded the upper halls, glyphire dripping from their blades. She moved through them like a shadow of memory, silent, searing, unstoppable. She didn't burn them. Not fully. She made them remember. Their own betrayals. Their own silences. The day they chose to forget the dragons had names. But something moved above. Something that did not carry memory. Only erasure. A gust of freezing air blew through the corridor. The torches went black. And from the shadows, the final guard stepped into her path. Veyra froze. Her flame pulsed high and sharp, as if trying to flee her ribs. The relic lifted its head. Twin flame. You were never meant to be two. Veyra raised her hand. Flame danced across her fingers. You're not the first relic they've sent. The guard stepped forward. I will be the last. And then, it struck. The blast knocked her back into the marble wall. The runes beneath her feet shattered. Her fire flared reflexively, throwing a pulse of raw memory outward. The guard didn't falter. It walked through the wave, chains unraveling from its arms, blades forming from shadow and bone. And across the realm, Kaelen staggered. Ashra caught him midfall. What is it? She's fighting. His ember pulsed in time with hers. Fast. Dangerous. And then, a scream. Not hers. His. The flame inside him twisted, pulled taut by distance, bound by purpose. He clutched the sigil scroll. She's not going to survive this alone. Ashra's eyes burned. Then we don't make her. We call the chain. We call the old oaths. Kaelen stood. And we light the sky again. Chapter 17. The sky we light again. The last sky beacon hadn't burned since the siege of Grey Hollow, when the final dragons fell and the Flamekeeper order was thought to be extinguished. Since then, its tower, Alaruan spire, stood silent in the highlands, its fire pit choked with ash, its peak avoided even by crows. But Kaelen was going there, because the world needed to see it again. He stood at the edge of the valley where the spire rose like a cracked needle of obsidian and memory. Wind howled between its shattered teeth, and the scent of old Wyrmthrone clung to the cold. Ashra joined him, unfolding a scorched map. 3 days of climbing, if we move fast. For if we're hunted. We're being hunted now, Kaelen replied. Ashra smiled faintly. Then let's give them something to chase. They climbed. The path wound through forgotten villages, their walls blackened by old flame. In some places, the ground still shimmered with scorch marks that refused to fade, evidence of embers that had never truly gone out. At night, Kaelen dreamed of wings. Not his. Hers. Veyra, burning gold and violet, walking through stone as if it remembered her. She was still alive, but just barely. On the third day, they reached the spire's gates. Twisted iron bars, warped by heat long ago, sealed the entrance. But as Kaelen approached, the pendant around his neck, the one he'd worn since the mountain of Veyra, began to glow. The gates unlocked themselves. Not because he forced them, because they recognized him. The inside of the spire was hollow and vast. Stone steps spiraled upward into darkness, their edges worn by centuries of dust and silence. Ashra lit a small flame in her palm as they climbed. They'll see this from miles away. Good, Kaelen said. Even the Empire? Especially the Empire. At the summit, the wind struck like a blade. They emerged into a rooftop platform surrounded by broken columns. In the center stood the sky bowl, a massive circular basin etched with runes, once used to channel wyrmfire into a beacon flame. It had been cold for 100 years, but not dead. Kaelen stepped to the edge of the bowl. The ember in his chest flared. The Ashbound sigil on his back shimmered with light. And he spoke, not loudly, just truthfully. I am Kaelen, bearer of the second ember. Flamekeeper of the Ashbound. I light this beacon not as a warning, but as a remembrance. We are not gone. We are not lost. We are awake. He raised both hands. And the sky caught fire. The beacon erupted in a pillar of flame, violet and gold and white-hot silver, crackling with memory. The runes around the bowl burned with ancestral fire, projecting the sigil of the Ashbound into the air above the spire. It spun slowly in the sky, and for the first time in generations, the world saw the fire answer back. In the far south, rebels paused in the ruins of their stronghold and stared at the sky. In the east, among the ruins of a fallen temple, a blind monk wept and whispered, "They've lit the sky again. He lives." In the Bone Cathedral, the Empress stood before the high window of her throne chamber, watching the sky burn trace across the clouds. "So he dares to call them," she said quietly. To her side, the final guard reappeared, cloaked in blood. "The girl is fading," it said, "but the flame now shields her. He must be undone before she awakens fully. Then break the chain, shatter the sigil, and silence him before the others rise." But far below the capital, in the deepest tunnels beneath the broken crypt, Veyra stirred. Chains around her flickered and failed. Her eyes opened, and she breathed fire for the first time since her capture. "I see you, Kaelen, and I am coming." Chapter 18. The Breath of Rebellion. The beacon's fire had not even cooled before the message spread. First through the wind, then through the embers, then through the hearts of those who had waited their whole lives to believe it was possible again. In the port city of Kareth, where the ships bore dragonbone prows and flame ash tattoos were outlawed, a former Flamekeeper acolyte stepped into the open for the first time in 30 years. She looked to the horizon, saw the sigil blazing above the highlands, and whispered, "I was 12 when the sky last burned. This time, I'll be ready." She vanished that night, leaving only a pendant behind. Within the week, 3 cities refused imperial tithe. In the glass gardens of Orathel's Deep, where the nobles drank fire wine and pretended no dragons had ever existed, a painter saw the sky blaze violet and wept mid-stroke. He took a blade to the canvas, scrawled the Ashbound symbol in soot, and nailed it to the governor's gate. He was hanged the next morning, but by the end of the day, his sigil was carved into every wall in the city. At the northern border, near the salt-crusted cliffs of the Rift Lands, a band of outlaws once called the Ashbroken gathered around a bonfire lit without flint. Their leader, Tira the Red-Eyed, watched the flame dance and spat into the dirt. "So the air has lit the sky. Let's see if he can hold it." Then she turned to her bloodsworn. "We ride east." At the center of it all, Kaelen and Ashra descended from the spire, the light of the sky beacon still bleeding into the dawn behind them. His ember pulsed steadily now, not storming, not screaming. Just ready. Ashra glanced over as they mounted their steeds. "You've started something that doesn't stop." Kaelen nodded. "It wasn't meant to stop. It was meant to wake. But fire doesn't only draw moths. It draws enemies." Far across the Empire, in the shadowed halls of the Hollow Court, 13 masked figures gathered around a cracked stone table. Each wore the sigil of the old imperial bloodlines, those who had helped build the Wyrmthrone by sacrificing their own to the first flame. The air buzzed with silent fury. "The Ashbound boy lit the beacon," said one voice. "Let him burn. We've silenced worse." "No," said another. "This one has the girl's echo. They're converging. Then we unleash the Oathbound." The table cracked further as heat rippled through the room. "Let them meet what we buried before even the dragons were named." Meanwhile, beneath the ruins of the Ember Crypt, Veyra was moving. She wore her fire like a veil now, soft, terrible, patient. Each time she stepped through a corridor, the walls remembered her and opened. Ashmarked guards lay unconscious behind her, not dead, but silenced by flay-bound truth. Her ember now pulsed in rhythm with Kaelen's. "He's gathering them. Good. Then I'll break what's left." In the ember-chained sanctum, Kaelen met with the first arrivals. 3 riders from the southern coasts, wearing the colors of the old Flame Guard. 2 Shatterblade monks from the Temple of Ashwind. And a child, no more than 10, who held a pendant in her hand and said, "My grandmother said when the sky burns again, I was to come. She said you'd show me how to listen to the fire." Kaelen knelt before her, took her hand, and the ember responded. The child gasped. "It said my name." Kaelen smiled, eyes misted. "Then the fire knows you. And you're welcome." Ashra stood at the edge of the gathering, watching it grow. Riders came from the east, from caves and ruins, from bloodlines once erased. Some bore scars. Some bore secrets. All bore the look of people who had waited too long to believe in something. "This isn't just a rebellion anymore," she murmured. "It's a return." And high above the land, the Ashbound sigil still floated, trembling now, burning brighter. Because it wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was a breath, a shared fire. And across the realm, people began to speak its name. "Ashbound, Ashbound, Ashbound."
Every story has an ending, but some mysteries live on. If you enjoyed this tale, don't let it fade into the shadows. Smash that like button and subscribe for more thrilling stories that will transport you beyond the veil of the ordinary. Subscribe to our channel and your name will appear at the beginning of our next video, where we will pleasantly thank you for your subscribing. Tap the bell icon so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Share your thoughts in the comments. What twists did you see coming? And what secrets do you think still remain? Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and let the next story begin.